Nuera Pasha, her leadership team, and all the distinguished parents of the primary years program. It's indeed a great pleasure for me on this nice school morning in Bangalore. I hope the weather is equally good in Hyderabad, uh, to be able to speak to you today and to share with you what has happened, what is happening, and what is likely to happen as a result of this pandemic. You're all very familiar with the curriculum side, so I shall focus on macro issues. On macro issues which stem from the purpose of education at Indus and how it is shaping our leadership philosophy, how it will shape the training of teachers today and tomorrow, and how your child is going to succeed in a post corona world. Ever since, I would say, nearly 2 months, just short of 2 months, we've had a lot of experience on online teaching, a lot of experience in our one to one interaction with parents and with teachers. And what is emerging are three very important shifts. And the first shift is something which Indus has been talking at least for the last 2 years. And despite the fact that the message was clearly written on the blue skies, we did not take it seriously. And it took a corona to drive this message home. And the message is that in this new world of ours, especially in the post corona world, and given artificial intelligence and digital technologies, there is a shift in education from education of the heart and mind and not the head alone. So far, for millennia, I would say, education system has focused on the head, therefore on jobs, on placements, on careers. That is over. By the time your children graduate grade 12, at least 30 to 35% jobs will not exist. So education of the heart, which is education of competencies, emotional competencies for innovation. And education of the mind is spiritual, it's philosophical, it's ethical. So this is the shift in education. The shift is education of the heart and the mind and not the head alone. So far, we only focused on the head. And this is, I think, a very, very important thing to understand. So far, education focused on economic man. And therefore, we focused on head. Therefore, we focused on marks in examination. That is why we focused on placing them in good universities, good colleges, and help them to pursue their career. But by itself will not enable your child to succeed in a future world. It was the writing on the wall 20 years back, and now Corona 19 has been the biggest disruptor. And it is forcing us not only to brace with what is happening, but to take note of the fact that marks alone will not get success in life. You need competencies. You need competencies so that you can reskill yourself. Reskilling will be 24 into 7 into 365. It is not once in 5 years or once in 10 years. You have to reskill yourself every day because you have to be a lifelong learner. And therefore, competencies become extremely important. And as we move into this world of AI, of machine learning, bioengineering, coding, uncertainty, ambiguity over there, ethical issues come onto the table. And it is such an important issue that we have sidestepped the principal of Indus Pune as the chief philosophy officer on my staff. No school, no university in the world as a chief philosophy officer. Because we feel that the ethical dimensions of our children as they grow up, the ethical dimensions of our teachers as they continue to teach your children is of paramount importance. So this is the first grand shift. The second shift is in leadership. And as you know, leadership is the core philosophy of our school. So the purpose of education, as many of you are aware of, we always said, and us, we still say that, is to prepare a child for a future we do not know, a future that is VUCA. But now we live in a VUCA plus world. In the VUCA world, the uncertainty comes and it goes, the volatility comes and it goes. But in VUCA plus, the volatility continues, and the ambiguity and the uncertainty can last for months, can last for years. You know, so we have now refined the purpose of education in a very simple sentence. The purpose of education should be that when your child graduates from school, she should be future ready. And to be future ready, she has to be startup ready. She has to have the ability not to seek employment, but to give employment and to begin a startup immediately after she leaves school. We are setting up a startup school on an experimental basis in Bangalore, and the year thereafter, we will set it up in Hyderabad and in Pune as well. More about this a little later. We have redefined leadership. Therefore, to be a leader in this new world, you have to be entrepreneurial minded. Ladies and gentlemen, all entrepreneurs are leaders. But most leaders are not entrepreneurial. So we have a lot of people in society today who are holding titles or holding positions who got huge big qualifications from the universities of the world over there. Very few can show any evidence that they are creative, innovation minded, and they have transformed the organization they are working in.
Sound ఏంది?
Divya, I'm sorry. Can you please mute your microphone? Divya Reddy, please mute your microphone.
Please call up the parent. Please call the parent.
Rizwan, you can go ahead and mute it yourself.
He's not able to.
Oh, okay.
It's muted now.
Thank you. Sorry about it.
They've still not muted themselves. Parents, can you please mute yourself? I have sent personal messages to quite a few parents as well on the chat, requesting you all to mute your mics. Thank you.
Therefore, taking on from where I left a minute back, the new leader has to be an entrepreneur. She has to be an entrepreneur to be ready to start up and to be ready to reskill herself and reinvent herself. And the third very big thing which has happened is the online revolution. There have been a lot of prejudices against online education. These barriers have broken down. Online education is not a substitute for face-to-face learning. It is an alternative. And the thinking is growing, it may be a better alternative than face-to-face learning. And the thinking today in the world is that possibly in the next 4 to 5 years, the future of schools are going to be digital, or at best blended. But this brick and mortar style, classroom style, theater style, which is a relic of the industrial age, factory chimney smokes and chimney stacks and factories, where children sit in rows over there, the teacher stands in the front over there, and there are lots and lots of unhappy faces in the audience. That is out now, completely out. It took Corona to kick it out of the door and the window. Therefore, 3 things have emerged in this online revolution. Firstly, it is an alternative. Second is that it is going to develop a biliterate brain in our children as they grow up. Our children are born in I would say plasma. Plasma is like water for a fish. You take that water away, the fish dies. They are plasma children, not like you and me who come from the paper background. And therefore, this is absolutely required. You need both brains. You need a paper brain, a paper track. You need a plasma track. And the third reason for that is that non-linear education today has become more important. Non-linear education is exponential thinking, intuitive thinking, random thinking, big picture thinking, 10x thinking. Not making things 10% or 12% better, it is to make things 100,000% better, or make it 100% different to what we're doing right now. And non-linear thinking is best put across through online. It can be done offline, but there are very, very few people who can do it. It's extremely difficult to do it. But online, it's very easy to do it. Therefore, to recap, it is not an alternative. It is not a substitution alternative. Secondly, we require it for a biliterate brain because we need both the tracks, and it is non-linear. So because of these three, we feel that blended learning is going to be the way ahead for at least another 30 to 40 years. And therefore, even when so-called normalcy comes back, online will still happen. It will happen firstly for children who cannot join or parents are not confident of sending their children. It will happen for children who are not in Hyderabad or outside Hyderabad who cannot come, have got travel problems. It will happen to create that illiterate brain that I was talking to you about there. So blended learning is going to be the way ahead. Now let us look at the impact of Corona. I think I'm stating the very obvious when I say that everything is going to change. But what I'm going to say is, while everything is going to change, it is a good thing that everything is changing. If things did not change, our evolution would have stopped when we were chimpanzees. Because I think the identical genes of a human and chimpanzee, they are 98.6 and we are 100%. Had evolution not taken place, a change and transformation not taken place, Homo sapien would not have come, and we would have been today chimpanzees sitting in some jungle and eating nuts. So change is a good thing. It must happen. So I think that is the first thing which we have to understand, because evolution is always from a simple organism to a more complex organism, and that is what we are experiencing right now. Therefore, we are going to work differently, think differently, love differently, read differently, meet people differently. Everything is going to change for the better. And this change is going to make us better human beings, good human beings. Ladies and gentlemen, the first very big impact, which is schools. It is hitting all workplaces. It is hitting all workplaces, which includes your homes, includes our schools and classrooms, and it includes every single individual. Because of this VUCA plus environment that we are going to now live in, and that is now the new norm, the new normal over there, all workplaces are being turned into war zones. What I call is the Berutization of education, of social life. Everybody is now in a startup mode. Like Israel, from the very time of its inception, is a startup nation. For every 2,000 people of a population of 8.5 million, there is one startup. Young men and women who are on leave from the armed forces, where it is compulsory over there, will be dining in a restaurant with their automatic rifles on the table. And when the code word is given, In 4 hours from that restaurant, they're into combat. They're firing their guns into the frontline combat. That is the readiness of a country in a startup mode. If individuals don't have competencies, they will die. Therefore, to be in a startup mode, individuals have to be innovative. They have to be creative. Otherwise, they cannot reskill themselves. Even Fortune 500 companies are in a startup mode. There is no guarantee that Apple will survive, Facebook will survive, Amazon will survive. There is no guarantee. We hope they survive, but there is no 100% assurance on that. So everybody is in a startup mode. So getting 100 out of 100 in maths and chemistry when you graduate from school does not make you startup ready. To be startup ready, you need to be cognitive, emotionally, and spiritually be ready to take risks, to deal with failure, to persevere, to be resilient, to be creative, to be empathetic, to be able to work in teams. You need a different set of competencies. This is education of the heart and the mind. And although it is very, your children still have got many more years to go, but parents will understand that, particularly in our country, parents even at grade 5 are getting worried, what will my child do when she graduates over there? Even for our placement team in each of our schools, it's very important for them not only to place people in good colleges or good careers, it's equally important for them to find apprenticeships in the city of Hyderabad or wherever the child comes from, in case the child is in boarding. So that after 12, they can do a gap year, 1 year or 2 gap years over there, be a part of a startup, if not be startup ready, at least be an apprentice in a startup over there. Now that is the key importance of being ready for combat. The second big impact, ladies and gentlemen, is obsolescence. Everything. Jobs. By the time your child, grade 5, graduates, 30% or 35 or 40% of today's jobs will be non-existent. They won't be there. We may not have pilots flying planes. If today drones can fly and kill people, identify them and kill them 7,000 miles away from Nevada, where they're being flown over there, I see no reason why tomorrow's aircraft cannot be flown by remote, by AI. So whether we talk of remote cars, we talk of remote aircrafts, we talk of remote learning over there. Today, jobs are changing, becoming newer and newer by the passing day. Economy, politics, education, leadership, whatever, family as a unit, all changing. Even Moore's law is changing. Moore's law says that every 24 months, the computing power doubles. Ladies and gentlemen, everything can change in 24 days, in 24 hours. It can change before I finish talking to you this morning. Therefore, our children have to be technology minded. You don't have to be a wizard in science and maths and physics to be technology minded. I will possibly get 10 out of 100 in physics, chemistry, and maths. But I am technology minded. I understand the concept of a technology, where it is to be used, how it is to be used. And there is that big black box in that technology loop. Then I tell the experts, make that black box, and I want it to be made like this. Look at people in our villages who have not even school pass. They're using WhatsApp for business. You go to the sabzi mandis in all cities today, including Hyderabad. The people who are early in the morning at 4:30 when the vegetables come in or the fish comes in over there, they're using WhatsApp to run their business. They're not IIT trained. They're not coders. But they're using mobile phones and they understand the importance of WhatsApp and they're doing it over there. we need to understand that all our children have to learn coding. It is more important than English or Telugu or Tamil or Hindi or Russian or Japanese. Coding is now a second language, and that is why we start from age 3 onwards. We have to have innovative competencies to reskill ourselves. Something becomes obsolete, we must reskill ourselves. Teachers, for example, with this online revolution that has started snowballing, will have to reskill themselves. They'll be forced to reskill themselves. And we have to be lifelong learners. So lifelong learning now becomes on the top of the agenda. The third big impact is of standardization. Mainly because of our social background, our cultural background, we are very hierarchical. Our society, all Asian societies are hierarchical. This is why most of the life-altering innovations in the world have not come from the East. In recent times, I would say in the last, say, 500 or 1,000 years. And we are now seeing the collapse of standardization. Standardized examinations, standardized tests are the first casualty going to be in schools, which teachers have got to realize. There is no standard midterm test or standard final term test or a standard weekly test. It has to be based on the aptitude of the child. In fact, standardized tests, I give it another 1 year, will be thrown out of the window in all countries. They'll have no value. So the standardization model of command and control, titles, positions, working in silos, becoming very touchy and sensitive. If somebody sort of walks into our territory, we become very, very touchy about it. And not only that, because of the silo mentality, today very few teachers from early years can teach, say, in DP, and DP can teach in early years. Because we work in silos. Silos are crumbling. Hierarchy is crumbling. They're being replaced by networks, by webs, by teams, small teams, by personalization. Systems and processes will now be situation driven. We are in a war now. There is an enemy in front of me. He's got one bullet in his chamber. Either he gets me or I get him. Either I get the job or I lose the job. There is no room for going through systems and processes and saying what is going to happen now, what are the pluses and minuses of this thing over there. So systems and processes are going to be situation driven. And fortunately, we have the IB, which gives us the great flexibility. And our teachers, particularly our teachers, need to understand that we cannot be rigid about what IB says. IB is not God. IB is not divine. IB is as human as you and me. They cancelled the examinations for MYP and DP this year. Nobody thought IB would do that. And then maybe another 2 to 3 years, there may be an online IB diploma. Therefore, it gives us a lot of flexibility. And therefore, we cannot stick rigidly and fetishly and have this fatal attraction for peacetime modules. Lastly, of course, is the important aspect which I think is very, very important to understand because it concerns parents, children, and teachers directly. The present pandemic is clearly showing that we are conducting the greatest psychological experiment in human history. 7.2 billion people are in this experiment. And this state of uncertainty, isolation, fear of contagions, financial worries, future worries. Will I get a job? Will I get a placement? We need what is called psychological immunity. We need, as a collateral, we need cognitive immunity. Cognitive immunity is becoming more and more important because of the disinformation. 70% of what you see on WhatsApp or internet is fake news. Fake news, doctor. Or most of it is not reliable. And they write it in such a way that you feel that Bill Gates has said it or so and so has said it. It's a science which has been mastered now of disinformation, of fake news. How do our children distinguish what is fake and what is true? What is right information and disinformation? And the third, which is becoming more and more critical, is what I call is human hacking. Today, corporations and states have the AI capability to hack human brains. Today, Google knows more about you and me than you and I know about ourselves. Everything. Our interests, our login patterns, what we surf, what are we interested in, what is it that we are looking for, craving for, what are our attitudes, what are our perceptions. And as you saw in Brexit and American elections, today they have the ability to manipulate our thinking, to manipulate our behavior. We can't allow that to happen to our children. That is cognitive immunity. Distraction. We are so distracted now with so much of technology and so much of information is there. What to believe, what not to believe. We are distracted. How to deal with memory loss. Memory loss is becoming a major issue. It may interest you to know that now a lot of studies have started on how to deal with Parkinson, Alzheimer, dementia, and they are seeing that it's very easy now, relatively possibly going to become easy, that if you keep your mind engaged in something very, very useful, you ensure the neuroplasticity of your brain. You ensure that those protein plaques do not cover your brain. So how to improve your memory? So these are the aspects of, I would say, cognitive immunity, which now become extremely important. Ladies and gentlemen, I do understand that a lot of our children, a lot of people today who are in a lockdown situation or an uncertain situation today, are facing a lot of psychological challenges. It's only natural. In fact, the Chinese say nearly 28% in Wuhan, 28% parents in Wuhan face severe psychological disorders. Now, we have to look at these challenges as something good. We should welcome adversity. It is only through adversity that we can, as individuals, as societies, as nations, become strong to wither all storms. Adversity enables us to be more competent. Adversity makes us gritty. It makes us resilient. It makes us adaptable. And therefore, let us not look at Corona or COVID-19 as something which is we have to suffer. Suffering ceases to be suffering the moment it finds meaning. So let us give meaning to the adversarial situation that we are going through right now in COVID-19. If we can do that, we can turn a tragedy into a triumph. The people who survived in Auschwitz and Dachau were not the strong and the young. They were people who had something to live for, a higher purpose, something to die for, a higher purpose. So, education of the mind, which is really seeking a higher purpose to give meaning to our life, becomes paramount as part of a child's education. And children at a younger age, at a primary and a pre-primary age, are DNA'd to have a higher purpose. In fact, the whole exercise of higher purpose amongst the Jews, which is a Hadith tradition, starts at age 3. And that is one of the reasons why the Jewish community the world over are the most innovative community in the world. Most innovative community in the world. So what is this wartime model? The teacher is going to be the wartime teacher. What is she going to look like? What is this wartime student going to look like? I think the first requirement is to have an entrepreneurial mind. I explained to you the difference between an entrepreneur and a leader. A leader, a good leader, has got a good heart and is driven by systems and processes. Not bad. Possibly we can call him good man than Lantern. Good person. Speaks the truth. Helps everybody. But that's all. He does not transform everybody. Leadership must lead to transformation. Leadership must unlock the potential of a child. Leadership must make a child happy and make others happy. So this unlocking of potential and this transformational style is entrepreneurial mindedness. How many people today can say that so and so person unlocked my potential? Children remember only those teachers who transformed them, not those teachers who pulled their cheeks, patted them on their backs, not those teachers who gave them all the methods of scoring 100 out of 100 in maths and chemistry. They remember only those teachers who touch their life, who make them good human beings, and who transform them. That is being entrepreneurial. That is being startup ready. And to be startup ready will be the objective of Indus when your child graduates from grade 12. What is Indus doing about it? You're aware of the leadership curriculum. You're aware of the leadership school at Kanakpura. You are aware of the community outreach programs which are happening in Hyderabad. You are aware of the community school that we have, big community or equal opportunity school that have been set up in Bangalore there. But what you are not aware of is the startup school which we are going to have. This year we will start it on an experimental basis because there is no startup school for children anywhere in the world. This startup school will be from grade 9 to 12. We've had some very interesting sessions with parents at Bangalore. And after a tough selection, we will select 30 children from grade 9 to 12. There's a very rigorous selection process. They should be capable of doing their MYP and their DP, as well as be able to spare 4 to 6 hours every week for their startup assignments or startup projects. If they can't do that, then they are not entrepreneurs. It's straightforward as that. So they have to cope with both. They've got to do well academically, and they've got to do well as an entrepreneur. And they will be trained by the best brains in Bangalore, and when it happens in Hyderabad, by the best brains in Hyderabad. Free of cost to begin with. In this experiment, you're not charging anybody any money. And thereafter, there will be some notional charges, some basic, very, very notional charges. The best VCs, the best angel investors, the most successful entrepreneurs, people from the TIE, the Indus entrepreneurs, best NRIs who come from Silicon Valley, NASSCOM, CII, Knowledge Park, and Indus parents. In fact, one of the Indus parents in Bangalore is the one who has set up the Telangana IT hub for your chief minister. He's also on this team, working with me. So we will experiment with this, work out a very refined model, and then we'll export it to Hyderabad and Pune in the next academic session. So this is something has never been done. And the second thing which has never been done is the Chief Philosophy Officer, who will not only see the ethical dimensions of entrepreneurship, but will protect our children and our teachers from unethical practices today and tomorrow. The second big feature of a wartime leader is an idea man and an action man rolled into one. She has got ideas and she can implement those ideas despite all the odds, despite all the challenges, despite all the obstacles, all the impediments. This is the only innovation, is the only vaccine against COVID-19 and against climate change. It's not the vaccines that the pharmaceutical companies are going to make or the drugs they're going to make. Innovation, innovation, and innovation is the only vaccine which is going to build up those antibodies in our mind, in our heart, and in our head to be wartime leaders. So design thinking is going to play a very big role. The startup school is going to play a very big role. The leadership curriculum, particularly in goal setting and deep reading, is going to play a very large role to ensure that your child is future ready. And the third thing which is happening is the change in the role of the teacher. The role of the teacher so far is to teach the subject. When you meet a teacher, you say, "What do you do?" She says, "I teach chemistry." I'm a great teacher or a homegrown teacher in grade 4 or 3 or whatever term schools nowadays use. The role of the teacher is now to teach the child and not the subject. Ladies and gentlemen, 90% time of a teacher is spent in preparing for 4 lessons tomorrow morning. And even if I grant that all teachers are conscientious, it takes time to prepare for those 4 lessons. She has going to run that lesson 1 year back. She ran the last lesson. Now she's going to run it now. A lot of things have changed. She has to come prepared to the class. Now today, this must be the 28th town hall that I'm addressing in the last fortnight. But I come prepared. I come prepared. Every time I speak, I want to speak something new. Something new happens. I'm not only new, I'm able to explain that thing in a much better way. I realize that I cannot be wasting your time. Time is precious for you. I must talk sense. My talk has to be transformational. So even though I'm prepared, just because I've spoken to you today, I'm going to speak now to MYP and DP. I've done a lot of homework for that also. Although I've spoken to about 27 or 28. By tomorrow I've finished 33 town halls. 33 town halls. 6,000 parents. She has to prepare for 4 lessons: formative assessments, summative assessments, homework assignments, managing academic rigor processes, like assessment for learning on the homework assignments there, feedback of students, revision, support classes. Then there is Indus Day and Community Day and House Day and this day and that day. She has no time for your child. We will be fooling ourselves, deluding ourselves if we think that the teacher's got time for the child. And it's not only Indus teacher, anywhere in the world. So Indus, our solution to this is artificial intelligence. We have introduced robots who teach along with the teachers. These robots are working very effectively in Bangalore. And for the next academic session, Bangalore, Hyderabad will have 5 robots. Pune will have 5 robots. So these robots take away all the mundane, that 90% routine and mundane tasks. So now the teacher can focus on the child. This is called personalization of learning. So she will not only be responsible for the self-growth of your child, emotional support for your child, she will get you ready as a child warrior. So now all those routine and mundane tasks have been taken over. I would like to end on a very, very positive note. I would like each one of you to look at COVID-19 as a great gift of Mother Nature to us, as a great gift of God to us. It is a crucible experience, a life-altering experience. And going by the laws of alchemy, when you crush and stir ordinary metals, and you put them to certain high temperatures, you turn into gold. This crucible experience is a wake-up call for us to be innovative. It is shouting from the rooftop to tell us that if we are not going to be innovative, we will perish. Thomas Friedman, in his book, I think wrote about 10 years back, The World is Flat. In fact, I was with him in Hyderabad. He had just finished writing that book and he came to speak at the ISB. Mr. Ram Lingam Raju had invited him. We were traveling together for this venue. And he recounted this little story in his book. He says that when I was a small kid, my mother used to tell me, don't leave any food on the plate. They are starving Indians and Chinese. Think about them. I tell my children now, don't waste your time. Take studies seriously. Otherwise, the Indians and the Chinese are going to take your jobs away. Ladies and gentlemen, if your child is not innovative, somebody from outside will take her job away, will take her business away, business which you're going to give to us, you're going to take it away. Overnight it will go. The second big thing is, as I said to you, that innovation is the only vaccine against 19. And now that we have got a bigger threat at our door, COVID-19 will go another 3 to 4 months, the vaccines will be out, and that's the end of story. Although life will change, but end of story as far as COVID is concerned. But there's a bigger threat of climate collapse. If global temperatures rise above 2 degrees Celsius, the situation will be irreversible. It's like irreversible brain damage. So the moment you take the life support system on, the patient is dead. He's only being kept alive clinically. So innovation is the only vaccine against climate collapse. That threat is already there. And that is going to last at least for 100 years. You and I will be dead and gone. Our children will bear the brunt. We have to prepare them. COVID-19 is a mock, it's a dress rehearsal for this big threat which is lying outside. It is preparing us. Like mock examinations prepare you for the final examination, this is a dress rehearsal. And third, it has made us push the pause button. Or on your Google map, when you're going from A to B, you recenter yourself. See that you're on the right route. We had contact with ourselves. We knew everything about business, we knew everything about everything under the sun. We were walking Googles, we were walking internets, but we do not know anything about ourselves. COVID-19 is the pause button, as I said. It is forcing us to spend time with ourselves. It is reminding us that I am the most important person in my life. When I change, the world around me will change. If I have to change my children, I have to change myself first. They will only change when I change. And this is that great humility which has come to us. With these few words, I'd like to thank you all for for supporting the philosophy of Indus. I'd like to place on record our deep appreciation to the principal, Nuvera, our leadership team in DP under Rizwan and Radhakishan, Madhusudan, who leads the middle school, and Shweta Jolly and her gallant team in the primary. Without them, without their skills and competencies, we would not have been able to rebound and reboot ourselves. So we are most grateful to them. We are also most grateful to their parents who have the patience, go through with this difficult times, and to believe in our higher purpose of education, believe in our cause, our ideology, and our determination to make their child future ready. I shall be very happy to, before I hand over to Nuvera to explain to you the back to school plan. Nobody knows when schools are going to reopen. I was reading the HRD minister's comments yesterday on the net. He had a big webinar with thousands of people. And when asked on a question on reopening of schools, he said, there is no clarity. I'm quoting him. There is no clarity. It will open once the situation is normal. What does that mean? Your guess is as good as my guess. He also says that health of children is our key concern. He is absolutely right. The government cannot today, from middle of March till possibly August, September, it will be nearly 6 months and children would have gone to school. 90% schools in India have no internet access. But the government is not prepared, and rightly so, unless it is very, very 100% certain that children will be safe. So nobody knows. But from the undertones of what the HRD minister was saying, it is possibly August or September. And he's very clearly said, till then, continue online, those who can. And he's given some references of, some Indian learning platforms that use them. I cannot tell you when schools will open. That is, the HRD minister can't give you a date. It's not possible. This decision will not be a political decision. It will not be an economic decision. It will be a decision based on big data. It will be a decision based on the advice of doctors and immunologists. We cannot take a chance with your child. If one child in Indus is declared positive, we have failed collectively. It is a collective failure on our part. We cannot afford to have that situation. But having said that, as and when the green flag goes up, we will be prepared. And we are in a grand alliance with Apollo Hospitals, and Nuvera will be sharing the details with you. However, if you wish to ask me any questions or any comments you have on what I have said so far, I'd be very, very happy to answer them. Nuvera?
Thank you very much, Anu Ray, for your reflections.